Greetings and salutations, everyone. This is your Shogun, Sugi here, returning after, 2 weeks of hiatus. And today we're going to be talking about this recent anime original series by Netflix known as Vampire in the Garden. There will be some spoilers included on this review, so in case you don't want to know anything about this anime, maybe go watch it and then come back later to this video to discuss it with me. And Vampire in the Garden was animated by Wit Studio, which is obviously known from their previous work at Attack on Titan, and obviously another vampire series, Owari no Seraph, which I have reviewed also on the old channel, and I actually really like that anime, and I'm hoping it will be coming back at some point. Maybe the manga is not further enough to basically adapt additional seasons or something, but that was something that I did truly actually enjoy in the vampire genre. So what exactly is Vampire in the Garden about? What is the premise? So this takes place on an Earth where there has been a very long winter, okay? And the humans are in a great war against the vampires. So there's this, turf war over dominance. Humans are basically living in these small city states, which are basically protected by these massive UV lights, which are obviously deadly against the vampires, and there's constant war going on, casualties on the both sides. Humans especially, they're not exactly living this great life. Everybody is basically working in some apartment of the government basically, and continuously contributing to the war effort, so to speak. And our main character, Momo, is one of these people living in the human city, and she is kind of oppressed and doesn't like the lifestyle there. And her mother is a very big army general basically. And then the other main character, Fine, is basically a vampire queen, and both of them don't like living in that society, and eventually they will meet up, and that's where kind of their friendship starts, and they basically decide to escape. And this is kind of their journey about, it's a story about escapism, really. In the end of the day, I think that's what it's truly about. It's a bit of a dark fantasy setting. It's kind of serious at times, but ultimately it is a story about escapism. Now, okay, so this was 5-episode series, so that already kind of tells me that originally Wit Studio was thinking that this would be a movie instead of a TV show, but that's just something Netflix does, where they just kind of split seasons apart. They split movies into, this is a TV show now because we split the movie in different parts, and that's kind of what it really is telling me, because it's only 5 episodes, and I feel like this could have been a story that could have been told in less of a time, to be honest. It's not like it goes into this very deep detail about the world and the dynamic and the war. You have your side characters, which both have their objective to basically recover the missing people, so to speak, from their respective faction. From the vampires, it's Fine, and obviously from the humans, it's Momo. And it's kind of very simple story at its heart. I mean, it's about the human and vampire coexistence, which has always been a very key part about vampire stories in general. Now, the thing is with anime in general is that I haven't really seen excellent, superb vampire story. I mean, Owari no Seraph comes pretty close to that, but I always felt that there has been always very much better depictions in live action in the States, for instance, whatever it's movies like the Underworld or, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean, there are a multitude of different vampire movies that I've seen and TV shows. I'm kind of I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, but I've seen the Vampire Diaries, I've seen the Blades, I've seen quite a lot of vampire stuff, even before it became, more resurfaced stuff. And the thing is, I think that just the Japanese kind of always don't hit the mark exactly right. I mean, there are things about the vampires which make them kind of cool and stuff. There's an element of suspense, there's an element of romance, and those are not always very well, depicted or captured in these anime formats. I think the Vampire in the Garden is definitely on the better end of these anime vampire shows that I've seen, but fundamentally, it is a bit weird, anime. Not like super weird, but it's like, it's, yeah, I just like felt it could have been just a movie, and it could have like cut down some of the like filler stuff. Like a lot of the things that basically happen here is not actually like this massive character development in the end of the day. There is, by the way, like an after credits scene which actually adds up like to the story, like maybe a bit of a more happier ending, so to speak. But I mean, it is a kind of like a sad tale in a lot of ways. You're gonna be seeing a lot of teenage flashbacks because she had a relationship with another human in the past, so it's kind of like repeating the storyline. There's also some musical aspects to this because the music is kind of like one of the things that brings these two characters together. And there are some pretty cool music tracks actually in the anime, so I did enjoy those. But the OST otherwise I can't say it was like superb or something. I would, it's totally forgettable, to be honest. And but in terms of the animation, I think Wit Studio always kind of delivers. I don't think they do bad stuff. They had amazing backgrounds on this one. The animations, I think they were great. At times they kind of looked interesting or kind of weird, and the weird is not the word, but I guess it could have been a bit more detailed. The characters themselves are like, kind of simplistic in design, and you kind of see that all across all the characters really in this anime, because it's original. This is not based on any source material, and that's something we have constantly talked about in this channel, and I have talked about it for years, is that it's hardly possible when anime originals end up being better than like original stories. So the story is very simplistic at its heart, and that's why I felt like, because you're not telling something very overarching arc of a story, or you're not expanding on the world, it could have been just a movie really. And then again, if it had like 13 episodes, it could have added a lot more layers to it, a lot more factions, a lot more plot lines. The plot is like very, very simple. In the end of the day, like, it's very simple. There's not like massive plot twists. Actually, probably none when you really think about it. So I don't like when stories are extremely predictable. I think that's just like not good. But I mean, in the end of the day, Vampire in the Garden is not like a bad anime. It's pretty to look at. It's a story, about escapism. Like, people don't want to, they are searching this sort of like Eden, a place where they're going to be in happiness, they're going to be in solitude, and they don't want to participate on the world. And I think that it's going to be resonating a lot with the modern day, in the sense that people don't really want to be involved in the World War IIIs and the other shit up things that are going on right now. So it's a great time to do anime like this, but ultimately, like, everybody's kind of forced to choose sides sometimes, and that's what also the anime kind of explores. But I don't have much else to add here. If you're looking for a very good anime about vampires, I would probably go with Obarino Seraph rather than A Vampire in the Garden. That one actually has a pretty good story, and perhaps also a lot more like deeper relationships, and maybe it goes more into the psyche and the difference between the humans and, the vampires. And I think in a lot of ways, you can definitely see that this story was very influenced by Owarino Seraph, because the settings are kind of similar. You have two factions which know each other, because usually in general, like, vampire stuff, the vampires are not known to people, so people don't know exactly that they exist. And usually that is the premise. But in this one, it is full out war. Now that's okay, it's different, but usually kind of one of this, the very appeal of the vampire thing is that it's kind of like secluded society. That's something that is kind of in the dark, and then usually the main character, obviously being human, is introduced to that world, and that makes it kind of interesting that you get to explore it through the lens of the human. But when you have this type of a setting where both parties kind of know each other, there's not really a lot that of a type of a thing. But obviously you can't really repeat that same storyline over and over again. But hey, let's not blab any longer. That's pretty much my take on Vampire in the Garden. As some are already speculating, there is not going to be a season 2. Like, the story kind of wraps it up. It could have been a much more broader story. If they really wanted to build it on it, there could have been a much more depth into it. But fundamentally, like, it was fine. It's nothing too special, but it was visually at least good. and I did like some of the art style. I mean, the first episode, just to say this, the first episode was very promising, but then you kind of like understood that, okay, how long that this story is going to be going on. Like, the first story had a lot of the first episode had a lot of development, but then after that, like, it's just more streamlined and you kind of know what's going to be happening. Maybe you don't know what's going to be happening in the end, but yeah, okay. You could see it also coming. But thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more reviews. I have a couple of movies which I'm going to be reviewing, and obviously a lot of that backlog, which I already talked about on the last review. I will get onto this much more anime during this summer, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.